Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Zaina Kasim from Aviation Tanzania, where we bring you news, interviews, features, and the latest updates in aviation industry. Today's episode is titled Introduction of EASA B1 or B2 Training Certification in Tanzania. We're delighted to be joined by three distinguished guests from AeroTechnics, a leading aviation consultancy firm registered in Kenya, Tanzania, and Canada, offering a wide range of solutions to the aviation industry, including training services, technical services, and engineering consultancy. We are honored to be joined by Professor Tillman Gabriel, the Vice Chancellor of the First African and Aerospace University with over half a century of experience in the airline, aviation, and manufacturing industry, and Associate Partner of AeroTechnics. Professor Ian McAndrew, a Fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society and Associate Partner and Board Member of AeroTechnics with more than a quarter century of experience in aviation, and Engineer Jared Ajuanga. Jared is the Vice President for Africa at the International Federation of Airworthiness, IFA, currently based in Canada, a seasoned aircraft engineer who has worked across 4 continents, a respected aviation expert with extensive experience in the field. Before we dive into the EASA B1 and B2 certification training, Mr. Jared, which is currently one of your main focus here in Tanzania, I would like to begin by learning more about AeroTechnics itself. What is AeroTechnics and its role in the aviation industry?
Thank you, Zina, and thank you for such a wonderful introduction. AeroTechnics is an aviation consultancy firm. And as you've said, currently we are proudly registered in Tanzania. Before then, we were already existing in Kenya and Canada. We offer a wide range of aviation services. Because the podcast now talks about B1, B2 training, I'll just give the background of what really we do. Other than the trainings, we have engineering consultancy services. We have technical services that we offer to all aviation-related fields. We have services that goes beyond technical and goes to operations, and my colleagues here will go deeper on when it comes to departments and operation. Coming back to training, we have the EASA B1, B2 trainings that we said we do. And our approach to the EASA trainings is quite different. It's not the basic or routine training that happens. Our approach is end-to-end that focuses on the need in the industry and what needs to be done to close the need. So that's basically what I'll tell you about.
Okay, now we're moving back to Professor Tillman. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Zena?
I'm fine. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Professor Ian, how are you doing today?
Excellent today. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Delighted to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. So what exactly is EASA B1 and B2 training, and how does it differ from the other maintenance training? Professor Ian.
I think I will answer that partly to start with, but I think Jared would perhaps be better to fill it in. You know, as we go around the world and we think about aviation, if there's one industry which really stands out in terms of safety and success, it's the aviation industry. You know, I challenge you to think of the last 5 commercial aircraft that crashed. And most people will struggle. It has an excellent safety record. And that's because of commitment, but it's also because of training, lots of training, and organised training. And this is where the B1 and B2 licenses come in. It forms a fundamental foundation for so many things that happen in the aviation industry. Now I'll pass back to you, Jared, about more of the detailed side of that on the application, if I may.
Thanks, Ian. And Ian rightly puts it. Aviation is one of the fields that, in my considered opinion, is overly regulated. And so when you talk about any licensing program, be it the EASA license or any other license, there are very detailed protocols that one has to go through to be able to qualify or even to attempt those licenses. Mm-hmm. Currently, if you look at my background, other than the trainings that I do, I also sit in a body called National Federation of Airworthiness, where I'm the vice president responsible for the African continent. We deal with the airworthiness matters across the globe, and the perspective that I have seen that concerns us so much in Africa is the employability of our youth that are in aviation today. There's a huge gap of what the industry wants and what is available in the market. So how do we fill in this when it comes to the trainings? There is need to look at the content of what we do today in trainings, in the regular trainings, so that as a student goes from the regular academic training, be it your degree or diploma, and you come into a professional angle where you do the licensing, there is need to be sure that you are ready to meet what the market wants. So the EASA B1, B2 training program has constantly changed to meet really what the industry wants today. And among the key things we look at is how the syllabus is designed, looking at the amount of hours one puts in his workshop practice, the actual practical experience that one has. So the training program runs deeply from theory to a practical aspect, which going down through the program, probably I will explain bit by bit what's required for each and how to go about it.
Okay.
You should add that we have two drastic changes in all aviation education, driven down from ICAO in Montreal, our overall governing body of all aviation in the world. That's why I'm always saying aviation is global. It is not local. It is not a countrywide thing. You always have to play a global along the global regulations. And the one change that we have in B1, B2 engineering education is that we are now going for competency-based training and assessment. You have to show your behaviors that manifest the competency to be a qualified B1, B2. And that change is driven, one, by addressing much more the focus on how do we interact, how do we go, how do we provide safe aviation, and two, how our young people are interested in this job. Because that's my second point. We need about 800,000 technicians to maintain aircraft, and that's not replaceable only in part by AI. It is real people who need to sign off repairs on aircraft, and that's why it is so important that we go out and find qualified young people who are able to go through a very challenging education program, but a very fruitful education program for years to come.
In your opinion, Professor, what makes B1 or B2 training game changer for an aircraft engineer's career?
Originally, being a mechanic or a mechatronic or an avionics person, and avionics meaning electronic equipment that can be in a car, in a ship, and wherever, you're doing a vocational training to be able to hold a screwdriver and whatever and do stuff to metal or electronic equipment. But then, in order to repair our very sensitive, regulated aircraft, you need these B1, B2 licenses, and they have a very prescripted educational program. B1 is nothing else but doing the sort of the actual aircraft, and B2 is going around electronics. So that's the difference, but education is on the largest part the same. So in that sense, a B1, B2 is sort of the higher accurate of being an engineer or mechanic that knows how to repair stuff. And we here, that's why we are from the academic world, which I changed into after more than 30 years in the aviation industry, is that we now combine these competency-based training and assessment also into academic programs, bachelor degrees, so that our young people have also the option to become a bachelor of aviation management or aviation safety. And that's very much also driven by our ICAO regulatory body out of Montreal.
Okay. Back to Mr. Jared. Could you clarify what type of student fits to take B1 training and what type of student fits to take B2 training in aviation industry?
When we come to qualifications on who does what in EASA trainings, basically there's the basic requirement from the EASA regulations that there is a minimum age required. Once you hit 18, you are able to do it. Yeah. The entry into this, again, is two-faced. There's the entry that one comes through an approved training program, where you go through a Part 147, fully approved and certified to offer an approved course. And that requires certain minimum of hours. I think it's 2,040 or something hours that one needs to have to qualify now as a B1 or B2.
Okay.
Other than that, there's the other entry of one goes through a technical training program. That is where people that have done degrees in aeronautical engineering or diplomas in aeronautical engineering, then after getting their academic certification or qualification, then they are able now to come and do the EASA B1, B2 curriculum. Then the curriculum also is divided into modules. So, and this is done to progressively build or usher you into the deep end of it. So when you go in, you're going to start from initial modules, which are very basic modules, module 1, 2, as you go on, then go to technical papers that would require more in-depth analysis. So the program has a way of, building this progressively, and after doing your modules and getting what you call now the certificates of recognitions. Okay. That is one aspect of qualifying for B1. The other aspect then comes in going through the on-job training, what is popularly known as OJT. The on-job training is now when now you go to the industry that is having live aircrafts, where now you go and have hands-on experience, aside from the papers that you have, certificates from the modules. The hands-on experience, again, has a requirement that you need to run through there are all the regulations around it. The number of hours you need to have, the number of tasks you need to have, and all the requirements around it. Both put together, then one can go and apply for what you call an EASA B1 or B2 license. Okay. So it takes the modules and the practical experience.
Okay, now let's look out to the opportunities. What are the current opportunities that are in this field right now?
Well, if we follow on from what has been said earlier, there's a lot of maintainers around that are close to retirement age. This is globally. And as you rightly said, Professor, those are retiring, but there's going to be more of those people are needed. The actual total number will increase as aviation increases globally. So we're struggling to maintain a number of people to do this work, not only just to maintain current levels, but as things expand, there's even more needed. So there's a vacuum, really, and this qualification, and it is globally recognised. And you could go and work in anywhere in the world if that skill set is needed and apply your skills there. So just because, and we use today as an example in Tanzania, a qualified person from Tanzania could apply to work in almost any airport around the world, working on these aircraft, which are all over the world. So it is a sort of a gateway to global work, if you so wish. But I would add as well about B1 and B2, there are some people that qualify in both of them. And people start on there, and the beauty of this is that people, when they start on this particular course, as opposed to maybe a classic degree type of course, they have an affinity for something. They may be more mechanical or more electrically minded, and they may find that as they start to do some of the standard modules that they're more enjoyable in certain areas and have a natural aptitude. So it's possible to be in both of them. Not many, but that gives you a bigger skill set that makes you a bigger requirement for doing these. And we have to think as well, and my background was in the car industry and the aviation and education. And if we think over the last couple of decades how cars have become much more complicated, if we think of aircraft, the same has happened. It's become even more complicated in the future. And wherever you add complexity, you add more support to maintain it working in that operation. And we're fortunate today with the professor next to me, has a lot of experience flying some of the most popular and famous planes that have been around for years. Now, he will have given you, or could give you, many examples of where we have advances in systems and everything else like that. Every system needs a backup. It needs spares, it needs predicted maintenance, it needs scheduled maintenance, and it needs to be done at the level that is existing at the moment, that crashes are very rare because of such faults. But of course, there are opportunities for people, and some of them then go on to study for degrees, for example, and then they can progress in this areas to different levels of maintainers or managing aircraft hangars or being the chief maintainer for an airline and things.
Leading people.
Leading people, very high salaries, very important responsibilities. And they too are in demand. It is a unique skill set. It's one of those things, and as you were rightly saying, AI will not replace the majority of these people's workloads. It may assist them in fault diagnosis, but it will not replace the actual part of going to an aircraft, looking at the damage, the problems or the faults, and then diagnosing what it's costing. Many people here will probably have been experienced of being on a delay from an aircraft not being ready. If there's a big mechanical problem, it can be hours to fix. and not wasting time and having the skill sets to do it right first time is what these courses offer people. Because airlines do not want a $300 million aircraft sitting on a parkway somewhere for 10 hours as someone replaces a part as they're not that sure, and it could be done in 2 hours because they cost a lot of money and the inconvenience to the airline industry.
And by the way, we only have, in pilotry, we have 7% globally, 7% female. In engineering, we have my latest number, 2%. And with AI, with more and more electronic work to be done, it is absolutely a female job. You don't have to work hard things, you don't have to carry engines or whatever. You are sitting mostly in the office, analyzing problems and looking at many support programs, AI programs, who analyze the workforce. And the 10 hours in part, I, as a pilot, as a captain, I was waiting a lot of hours for people who are doing one thing that can absolutely be done by AI, and that's paperwork. Because every repair, contrary to cars and everything else, has to be written off by those B1, B2 people. Cannot be written off by the person who does the actual change job. So it is an absolute bureaucracy that is adding on to repairs or necessary repairs. And again, absolutely a female job today. And we need more than just 2%.
Thank you so much.
And if you look at what my two colleagues are talking about, there's an angle that they're bringing up that is quite interesting, and that is the angle of competency. A license does not make you a well-sought-after engineer. Competency does. What we must be keen at this stage on doing is building competency. There is a rush for people to acquire licenses, and again, I think there's a misconception about these licenses. Africa today, we are in Tanzania now. Tanzania's operators here do not require EASA license per se because they're all regulated under the local AMO. Over 40 airlines registered here today, they are certified in accordance to AMOs registered and supervised by the TCA. So the perspective of EASA license is a global picture, and the global industry requires competence. The competition is huge. You'll apply for a job that everybody across the globe is applying for. You must just fit in. So very important to stress is we need to build competency amongst our people as they grow in the industry. There is a lot of automation coming up, and AI or any other automation process would make you think it's as quick as 1 + 2, and that you can move from today a technician and become an engineer tomorrow. There's a process. It must just follow the process. We must build the competency. The training must be structured in a manner that progressively, good example are even the OJT logbooks that we have. It is one thing to have a logbook and feel what you've done, but it means a lot if you have a sequentially worded logbook that progressively builds and enhances knowledge retention in your mind, so that when you talk of a task and you go back home, you are able to recollect the task you did, and you're able to package it in a manner that you can present it as a spoken presentation, or even you can demonstrate it practically. So we need to constantly build competency amongst our young professionals coming into the industry.
Speaking of that process, how long do the B1, B2 training usually take?
So if you go for the approved course, it's going to take you between around 2 years because it counted in hours. So you need to build around 2,400 hours thereabout. But if you come through the route that is from academic route, you have technical background, you do what you call a modular training. The modular trainings are based on how much you could take as individual to do the respective modules. At AeroTechnics, we have a 4-month program. So for the 4-month program, we divide it into 2 phases. There's a phase 1 that is called the online revision process. Number 1, before we admit into our programs, there's a preliminary stage where we must vet you to see, are you the candidate that requires really to go for a full course, or you have a proper technical background and you can go for modular training. And so we only take people who fit in the modular training program. Now, in that program, we take you for the first 2 months on a guided revision, through which we sit with you and have experts around you to take you through the revisions on each and every module to see your perspective, how you understand it, and to guide you on how to study the EASA B1, B2A. Acknowledging that we come from different backgrounds. There are those who did F844 academic program, and where those who could get the hardest answers then were the best students. In EASA, it's different. There are knowledge levels. So there are questions you're going to answer up to level 3. There are those that come to level 2, and you must understand what level is required of you. If your approach is always the hardest, you will answer all the questions to level 3 and you'll get it wrong. So there's the first phase of online revisions. Then we have the second phase that goes for another 40 days, and that is the instructor-led session, where again, instructor comes to you in class and teach you each module step by step until the end, the last module. And thereafter, you have an examination period for 7 days. So pretty much it runs for around 4 months to do just the modular process. There is the other phase that we'll talk about, that is the industrial attachment phase, the OJT.
Is it possible for an aircraft engineer to attain both trainings at different period of time?
Yes, it's possible. And you talk about the different trainings, the difference only on the modules. There's a B1 that's purely mechanical. You say those who work on the engines and the airframes, those are called B1. And then there are those who work on the electrical aspects, as Prof said earlier. Those are the B2 people. So if a B1 wants to cross over to B2 or B2 the other way, there are selective modules that you will pick. You will do your B1 and complete it, and then there are selective modules that you will now do to qualify you to become a B2, and vice versa for a B2 coming to B1.
Okay. Now, let's move to, I've seen that AeroTechnics offer multiple training services, including EASA Part 66, B1, B2 training, aircraft type training, and practical training, and web-based training based on your website. Mm-hmm. Are all this training currently offered in Tanzania currently, or there is a specific code that you're focusing on?
Yeah, so right now we're just setting up in Tanzania. So the trainings are demand-based. So if today we got a demand for Aries, we'll put up a class for Aries. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but as I also mentioned, we are operating in 3 countries. So there are a good number of Tanzanians who are currently in our classes that are happening in other places outside Tanzania. Case in point is I run online mentorship programs on a monthly basis, and we touch on a wide range of topics that are key and pertinent to aviation and upcoming engineers. And we get attendance from across the continent and across the globe, actually. So the trainings are demand-based. Whenever demand comes up, we'll put up a class for that specific training. But we have those that I've said that are ongoing and they are accessible online.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A few months ago, many aircraft from a couple of airlines here in Tanzania used to travel abroad to attain this B1, B2 certification. But right now that you have provided this opportunity to Tanzania, they don't have to go abroad anymore. Was there anything specific that pushed you to open the branch locally?
This process usually follows demand. Now, we've done these trainings for 10 years now.
Okay.
Previously, we were only operating from Nairobi, and we used to have students traveling from across the globe coming down. With time, we've realized there are a number of students that are coming from Tanzania, and out of that, we brought it closer to the Tanzanian space. But that aside, as we said, aviation is global. There is need to not only focus on the licensing program, there is need to build the general aviation in Tanzania. Remember, this student, by merely studying the B1, B2 alone, does not qualify to be an engineer per se. He needs to have a very robust maintenance facility in Tanzania that is close to him either way. So we're not only building the training programs, we need to work harder and build the Part 145s, the organizations where these students will go and gain the experience required. Other than that, aviation is overly regulated, and there must be. And I say this with a lot of decorum because we've had a lot of cases where students find it easier, quote unquote, to sit EASA programs and then come and convert later to their local CA programs. Remember, to be able to certify in any country, you need a local license that is domesticated or that is issued by that authority in that country. In this case, in Tanzania, anyone certifying here will need to have his license domesticated or issued by the local Tanzanian authority. So you must have a pipeline, pathways, within which we can build manpower in the authority. Because it is that authority that regulates what's happening down here. So by training locally in Tanzania, we are building manpower that works in these pathways to the airlines, to the authority, and of course, to the global world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Professor Tillman, I would like to know about, I've seen that you're using German approval system in the training. What's led to the choose of the German approval system among others? We see that some of the, I would make it clear, like your competitors here in Tanzania are currently using a Greek approval system. What led to the choose of that, and what that choice means for the training you provide?
Actually, I could pick that for Prof, because that falls squarely under my docket.
Okay.
How EASA works? EASA, as the name suggests, is aviation safety agency that brings together many CAAs. Europe saw this long time ago. We are working through it now in Africa. Probably certain dream will come through at some point. But Europe saw this long time ago and brought their CAAs together to have standardized processes so that they could have common regulations that govern their civil aviation authority. Now, various member states, because EASA as a body does not issue a license. EASA gives authority to each member state to issue licenses, among other things. So today, one can choose to train with an organization from France, from Germany, from Italy, wherever. But in our approach for training, we value partnerships. As I told you, these people need a pathway to move beyond the classwork. So we look at, after you are training, where do you go? How do you get these industrial placements? How do you get the jobs that you need to do? Most of these EASA demanding jobs are global jobs, they're not local jobs. So we look for partners that will help us connect the dots. We need partners through which we are able to connect our students with global employers, for example. We need partners through which we can build industrial collaborations, where not only training, we have also some OEMs that can come to our country and establish their local presence. Key example, if you look at how many airlines are flying into Tanzania today, quite a number. But the question is, what is their presence in the Tanzanian economy? Is there any program they're doing to offset perhaps their carbon footprints in this economy? So those are the kind of the questions we look at, and we try, okay, what kind of partnerships can we build so that we have an all-round program that not only touch on training, but also touch on adaptability. How do these students move from the class to work process? How do we have fieldback programs that will ensure even as they move out, there's continuous supply of manpower in the country? So our choice of partnership really depends on the goal that we want to achieve. And for us as AeroTechnics, we value the German partnership today.
Okay.
If I can add to your good points, EASA has become the global standard of regulation. There was and used to be FAA as a sort of different US governed piece that's slowly evading. But EASA is not only the 27 European countries. EASA is a working partner of Morocco, Egypt, Kenya, and several others. Meaning in those countries, by contract, they're adopting the EASA rules right into their national program. So EASA is now become a standard, meaning you have a license from EASA, or that is EASA 147 approved, and therefore an EASA, as Jared just called it, EASA license, is adaptable in most countries. For example, Emirates, Etihad, Qatar Airways could never have been built in this way if these countries, very small, wouldn't be working partners of EASA. So every EASA license is automatically approved in those countries. As Jared just said, you need, in any case, you need the local validation of an EASA country. You cannot work in Tanzania without an approved or a adapted license by the Tanzanian TCA. So it is, for me, one recommendation in Tanzania to become a working partner. Of course, TCA has its own say and its own image and its own proud, but many other countries, including some of the biggest developments, Middle East, are EASA working partners, because it does not make sense to have your own licensing, training, and whatever regulations when we have a global entity of aviation. And that's one of the important points where we come in, bringing together those pieces and also help not only Tanzania but the surrounding countries in this growth that we all want, also from EU-driven, that Africa is finally getting somewhere in aviation. Africa, with the fourth largest people, for 1.4 billion people, has only 2% of the aviation in the world. And you cannot connect people in Africa with rail and street. That takes decades and lots of money. A runway, 3 kilometers, 3.5 kilometers, costs money, but it is much faster done than a road or a rail. And that's why I see now a movement in Africa, and for that we need the education and the licenses, and that aviation is growing very quickly in Africa as well.
May I add to that as well? The projection of population over the next sort of 50-odd years, Africa is going to be the only continent where the actual population increases. Other continents are all going to be reducing, which means the demand for aviation in Africa is huge. That demand can't always be satisfied overnight in terms of what can be happening. If I follow on from Jared's comment, if I'm going to fly somewhere in the world, the probability is if I leave the airport here, I will be on a KLM, I'll be on a Turkish or Kenyan airline to go somewhere else to get a connecting flight. As the population increases greatly in Africa and Tanzania, why are Tanzanian and other African airlines not going to be as successful as some of these big players? Well, to be successful, you need a skill base. And this not only adds to that skill base, but adds to the potential that can happen in the future. And following on from the points again that have been discussed, if I am in Germany and I want to study for these qualifications and I'm going to go to Belgium or France to do it, there's not very much difference financially to go and see that. If you're from parts of Africa, to go to study in Germany will be considerably more expensive than a local person because of the scales of living. Now, by studying in Tanzania, you can get a global qualification where you could work globally because you will be paid a global salary wherever you worked. So it's all interconnected. And as we see, aviation has the potential, and there's never been more of a potential for aviation in Africa than ever before. Anyone entering the aviation sector now will be working to the day they retire, and probably, as there's never enough people being trained, asked to carry on after retirement if they so wish. This is one of those areas where you can start a career at a young age and know that you're going to have a career for the next 50 years if that's what you choose. But it also benefits the local community because it gives the potential for these aviation companies to expand, and having qualified people that are recognised globally means that those aircraft can fly to anywhere in the world. Now, it's not quite a simple step as that, but it is a step that can happen. And education is key to this, and it doesn't matter what level it is, but in this particular case that we're studying, it is there which is good for yourself, it's good for the country, it's good for the region, it's good for the continent, and of course that will be good for the world. And whenever there's a demand, there's going to be a demand for people. And this is where AeroTechnics comes in and offers a local solution that can be possible.
Okay. Professor Tillman, how do you see this field evolving over the next 5 to 10 years? And how should young engineers prepare themselves for this?
That's a good question, Sena. The next 5 to 10 years will be very decisive in many ways. We have a huge development of AI in aviation, which is one of my research areas. That does not mean, contrary to public belief, that now the jobs are gone or AI is replacing us. In the contrary, very specific developments because of, as we said many times now, of the high regulation And we have now ethical publications by EASA, how AI is introduced into aviation. So we already have a team concept developed in research and as a regulatory publication from EASA, how we integrate the colleague AI into this aviation management. And therefore we need people, because it's very clear that the human being stays on top, makes decisions because of the critical environment we're in. So we need young people with all the skills they have, meanwhile already with AI, to go into this very interesting field in Tanzania and in Africa in a global work market to contribute to this fascinating development. And big part, of course, as we said, is the aviation maintenance or the aircraft maintenance, which is one, very regulated. On the other hand, still a lot of things to do in getting it more structured, better organized, and in all aspects internationalized. We cannot have an MRO, which is a maintenance repair overhaul center, in Tanzania, in Kenya, in every other in African country, because that is just not enough business to get those licenses, all the B1, B2 people, as we explained earlier. The overall approval of the MRO is so complex and so magnitudinal. And every aircraft has its specific licenses. Every B1, B2, we didn't mention that yet. You cannot do the same approvals on a Boeing aircraft, even the type 737. That's what you have a right to approve. When you go on an Airbus, you have to do more courses to get the rights to approve that aircraft. And all separated by B1, B2. Highly complex, and to build that up as a small company with not enough cash is very, very difficult. And though we see a concentration of MROs in the world to a very few. Yes, you have to bring aircraft from Tanzania and elsewhere. Tanzania, don't get me wrong, has its own maintenance approval, of course. But big repairs are done by the big companies somewhere in the world, and you have to ferry the aircraft there. So again, that needs people, that needs knowledge, that needs AI. And I think the next 5 to 10 years, as to your question, are very decisive in how we do it right, because airlines will no longer, and this is one of the few industries compared to rail and other industries where the government and your tax money is paying this. Airlines have to be able to stand by themselves. That's the case in the US, that's the case in Europe. Whoever is not fit to survive is going down, is going out of business. And therefore, I see that also as a trend here. We need more this privatization, this energetic entrepreneurial drive in Africa to start good airlines doing profitable business with good people that are not only B1, B2, but pilots, ground people, marketing staff. For all that, we come in also to provide BSc bachelor and master degrees, because that's also a very empty field. There are a few universities now in the world who offer those degrees, bachelor and master in aviation safety and aviation management, but there is very little. In Africa, I started the first such university in Nigeria, doing very well. We have over 200 master students and several hundred bachelor students in year 3 of the operation. So again, Africa has so much to catch up. But the EU, others, ICAO, I already mentioned, our Montreal overall body, is very keen to provide all the support and the help. The big motto here is no country left behind, because every human being has a right to have a support infrastructure in visiting friends and family or going to other countries to do business. All that needs, of course, a functioning aviation industry that is not, and that comes to my other big pet peeve, is sustainability, that is not contrary to what we try to achieve also, a better and safer climate change.
Okay. Mr. Jared, on your perception, how do you see this field evolving over the 5 to 10 years?
Well, Zena, that is really a good question, in the sense that as Prof has said, and usually I find it not so easy to be in the middle of professors, because sometimes you quote a book and it's the guy who authored that book.
Okay.
And you have to be very careful the words you're going to use because the book was written by him.
Yeah.
Now, aviation will self-calibrate, for sure, as any other industry. With the rate at which technology is evolving, there is going to be self-calibration. So only the fittest will survive. The weaker will just dissipate. The equipment that we study today, the technology, is evolving way faster than our syllabuses. So there are institutions today that are training, but the syllabus they're using do not really align with the current technology. Today we have aircrafts that are made out of carbon. Yeah, and you won't be surprised if you find institutions that do not even have a repair scheme for a damage on a fuselage, on a carbon fiber reinforced plastic fuselage. And so the syllabus has not caught up with the technology. So what am I saying? It will have a situation where few institutions will stand tall in training, few airlines will stand tall in service provision, and the continent today that looks so divided into so many countries will have few known institutions that offer excellence. And we must today position ourselves to that path of excellence if you want to survive in any industry. So that to me is my call to the whole aviation industry. We must be on the path that is positioned for excellence, and we must really move with speed as the technology evolves.
Okay. So if someone just start out, what's the one piece of advice you would give to succeed in aircraft maintenance engineering field?
Competency. Number 2, competency. Number 3, competency.
All right. And how can someone interested in your training reach out to you as AeroTechnics?
We have our website, and through the website we have the email addresses, we have our social media handles. There's AeroTechnics Limited and LinkedIn. We have our Instagram pages. The world is now so open, and so by the search of the word AeroTechnics, you'll probably get the first 5 pop-ups coming to our links. Other than that, anyone else who probably want to have a physical address, we have our locations well illustrated on our website. If you are in Kenya, we have our space in Kenya, in Canada, also here in Tanzania.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Jared. And I would like to thank all of you for participating in this podcast. Thank you so much. And it was an honor to have you in this conversation. Thank you, Professor Tillman. Thank you, Professor Ian McAndrew. Thank you, Mr. Jared. To the audience, everyone who's watching our podcast, thank you for being with us today. Don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel as Aviation Tanzania. My name is Zaina Kasim. Until next time, bye-bye.